I did play Megadeth's first 5 shows.
If he called me again, I'd play bass with him for a day or for a song.
The world will probably never hear him.
I wasn't too keen on the dress code.
Death or Megadeth or something, right?
Dimebag Daryl almost became, of course, Pantera fame, almost became a member of Megadeth, but he didn't want to join a band without his brother Vinnie Paul also being in the band. And because you had already hired Nick Menza, you were forced to turn Dime down.
That is, man, that is so close to fact. All of it's true, except at the time, Chuck Wheeler was still our drummer. So the Nick Menza part is not there yet. Chuck would leave, Nick would come in. So you're bending the truth toward what would become fact.
But you had a drummer and therefore couldn't.
Yes, that is true. And Dime, he said if I would take the gig, I'd have to come with my brother, and we actually had a drummer. Yep.
God,
Yeah.
you can just imagine how that would have changed just the history of music and
Yeah,
metal.
Death or Megadeth or something, right?
Jeez. 2003, you joined Ozzy Osbourne's band. Both yourself and Ozzy were enthusiastic about recording an album together. Why not?
ATV accident.
That's why. Yeah, the ATV accident.
And I had to go on with Voivod, and we wanted to make another record, and then I wanted to do the other stuff, and on and on and on I went.
So if it wasn't for that ATV
I think
accident...
well, because we were scheduled to open for them across Europe, and the deal that I made with Sharon in February of that year was that if I'm coming out, I got Voivod going, we got a record going, if I'm coming out, you have to let us open all the shows. And she's like, well, okay. So I did double duty, and in 30 days I did 60 shows. That's how I rolled that summer.
Yeah.
So it's like that, and that's how I was ready to roll in Europe too. I play in that band for an hour, and I play in that band for 2.5 hours on the same night. Let's go.
Wow.
Had like 40 or whatever songs spinning around in my head with all, and they're all such a, think about it, dude. Some of the Geezer lines, and then some of the Blackie lines from Voivod, and all those kind of keeping all that together on bass. That's a lot, man, a lot.
For sure.
But it was victorious. So, but I would have loved to rock with Ozzy. I would never put it out of my mind. If he called me again, I'd play bass with him for a day or for a song or whatever. I'd never, I don't feel any ill will towards any of that camp. And I mean, it was an honor to be with a great teacher like that. He was just he was quite out of his mind at the time. It was hard to deal with sometimes, but he's also a genuine rock fan. He's just like you and me.
It says you recorded 10 original songs with Velvet Revolver, but it's unlikely that the tracks, or some people call it like a demo, will ever be released.
I think it was 10. I think it was, it's either 9 or 10. There was a handful that we wrote, and then there was a handful that I kind of rearranged a little bit based on music that they already had. So it wasn't music that we kind of wrote together. I mean, there were like I think there was 3 songs that we wrote together, which were actually pretty sweet. And then the rest of it was me writing to music that they already had, that I thought was pretty cool. Yeah, the world will probably never hear him, which is fine because, I mean, I would want another crack at kind of working on some of that stuff anyway, but that'll never happen. So it's all good.
I think a lot of people know this, but you auditioned for Poison, and that didn't come to fruition, but I was curious of how close did you come exactly?
Yeah. Well, what happened was I went down there, I played the shit out of the songs, but I wasn't too keen on the dress code.
Really?
And so that was that.
So, well,
because Poison was a full-on 80s hair glam kind of thing.
Of course, people mistook them for women.
Sort of down to earth, sort of as is. It's pretty much the same as I am now. And when we had this conversation about I remember it was something about shoes, and I was like, huh, come again? And it just wasn't going to happen. And I left there that day, and CeCe was walking in for his audition, and I knew that's going to be the guy, because he was dressed to the nines in sequins and makeup, and the hair was up and the whole bit, and that was what the image was about.
Damn, what was wrong with your shoes? Did you just come in with
I was wearing moccasins.
Moccasins? Yeah. That's not very Poison, is it?
Wikipedia says in 1986. You embarked on a solo project, reportedly approaching future Iron Maiden guitarist Yannick Gers, but this did not work out.
Damn, they know a lot of stuff. Yeah, I was going solo, and I approached a few different people along the way. Yannick Gers, I spoke to him. was interested in getting him in the band. I spoke to Vivian Campbell at one point. And there was interest, but it just didn't work out. And then I wound up working with Bernie Torme, who had also played like Yannick with Gillan. And a band called Mammoth, where I heard him on, and he actually played with Ozzy. He replaced Randy Rhoads, Bernie Torme. But yeah, Yannick, I did speak with Yannick, and there was talk, but it didn't happen.
Yeah, he's actually chalks it up to, said there's no way in this world that I'm putting on makeup or anything like that. I'm just not into that shit. And then said, but we had a chat and he seemed like a nice enough guy, but I never heard back from him.
Well, I mean, he's a liar because he confided in me, and since you went and said that, Yannick, I'm outing you, that he would not do it on stage, but in the privacy of his own home, he camps it up. He puts on the stockings and the garters, and him and his wife, they have a grand old time. So I'm sorry, Yannick, I had to out you as a closet, swinger that you are.
For Guns N' Roses' Appetite for Destruction, it says Kiss's Paul Stanley was interviewed to produce the album, but rejected after insisting on changes to the songs and changes to Steven Adler's drum setup.
That's correct.
Really?
It sounds really harsh on the Wikipedia, how you read it to me, but yeah, that's correct.
It sounded a little harsh. What was the deal then? Was it just?
We were looking for a producer, like you have. We got a record deal, and the thing was to look for a producer. Mutt Lang was our okay, let's have.
That would have been so weird.
Yeah, but he cost more just to walk in the room than we had for a record.
Of course.
Mm-hmm. So that was out, and then Paul Stanley came and saw us at Raji's. I got to give him that. Like Raji's is a shithole, and he came down
wow.
It's Paul Stanley. We were just like a shithole place playing band at that point. And he was into the band, but he had a different vision. He wanted to add more drums, and we just got done taking away all Steven's drums.
Oh, okay.
No rack tom, nothing. And he envisioned rack toms, and so that was a quick meeting. I was like, okay, well, we gotta.
Okay.
Thanks,
So.
you're Mr. Paul Stanley. We thought it was cool to have a meeting with Paul Stanley.
Sure.
But we had a pretty clear vision of what our songs were,
Sure.
and what they weren't supposed to be.
For Blackbird, you collaborated with members of Led Zeppelin for a project that never materialized.
This is true.
That's true.
This is true.
So, are there recordings of this that just haven't gotten out, or?
There might be like raw recordings. I don't think there's anything. It wasn't like we were in the studio and tracking things. People misinterpreted it as like there were songs written and a record started. It was nothing like that.
Okay, so no songs written.
There were some jams, which was there were two tracks that they had played that were new, and I just scattered over the top and just kind of made up stuff, which was awesome. I mean, it was fun. It was fun for me, I should say.
Pretty amazing, sure.
Cool.
What is it that didn't allow that project to take off?
That's a good question, because that period started in June of 2008, and I think they kind of molded over for a good 6 months as to whether they were going to do that or not with me or somebody else, and then they finally, by the end of the year, decided they just weren't going to do anything.
Was this going to be under the Led Zeppelin name? Or
no. I think it was going to be something completely different.
Okay. In 2003, you tried out for Velvet Revolver before they found Scott Weiland. But you were turned down because, according to Slash, it sounded like Skid Roses.
It was 2002.
2002, okay.
And I recorded 5 songs with them, and it did sound like Skid Roses.
Wow.
What the fuck is it supposed to sound like? Foghat? Like that's kind of way we sound, and
How did that
Scott Weiland, bless him, and that's great, but I think, maybe if they picked me, we might be together still, but that's long history, and Guns N' Roses is back, so that's great.
In 1984, you joined Dave Mustaine's new band, Megadeth. Jeff was worried about your decision, and while Mustaine wanted you to play on a permanent basis, you left Megadeth after playing 5 concerts.
I did play Megadeth's first 5 shows.
First 5 shows, all right.
And that being said, I was one of the lucky people, and there's certainly no offense against Kirk Hammett. Kirk's a wonderful friend of mine, but I was lucky enough to see Metallica with Mustaine. And I say that because it's just a rare thing to be able to say that. I saw them play at the Woodstock, and I was so intrigued by Mustaine because he was just ripping on guitar and looking out that way somewhere, and I'm like, I can't do that this fucking day. So I was just blown away at his guitar playing, and then to find out, I think it was through BC Rich, because we all played BC Rich back then. I think it was through BC Rich I found out that Dave was inquiring if I would play. And at the end of the day, I thought, this is a gigantic learning situation, And I also thought, people would see me and know me from Slayer, because we only went to the Bay Area. That's still when we only got up there. So I think if people saw me, it would at least make them think Slayer. So I had Slayer's best intentions in mind. I didn't go and say, hey, I'm going to be in Megadeth. I don't know how anybody can be in Megadeth for more than a couple hours, because that guy's crazy.
Any personal experience? Only 5 shows?
First 5.
Any weird experiences with him in those 5 shows, or just we know
he was cooler. He was cooler back then.
You made a brief appearance as Ozzy Osbourne's guitarist in 1994 and 1995, but Ozzy's page only lists you as a member in 1995.
Ozzy's page is right.
Ozzy's page is correct,
Yeah.
yes, as we thought. It was the one show that you played with him, right?
Yes.
Do you have any specific memories from the one Ozzy show?
Yeah. Well, it was at a venue that's still around called Rock City in Nottingham, and in England, and I remember it was the whole thing was like a whirlwind. Like it was.
Sure.
I jammed with him for the first time. And everybody told me, Ozzy hates to rehearse. So here's what's going to happen. He's going to come in the room. He's going to call out a song. Whatever song he calls it, just know the song. It's going to be one of these songs they gave me a list. Don't have to tune. If your amp makes noise, turn it off. Keep it on. Don't. He hates noise. It was this. So I got this whole preparation, and sure enough, he came in. He barged in the room. I called out songs, and apparently it went really well, because then I heard that we're doing this unannounced show.
Yeah.
But then I heard, we're not going to do the show now because he's got a sore throat. We're doing the show again. And it was on, and it was off, and it was on, and it was off. But then, finally it was on. But after the show, he gave me a big hug, and
good.
He actually told me I was hired, but all the road crew congratulated me, and they thought it was great. But I had a feeling, there was one person who didn't congratulate me, so I
have a feeling I may know who that person is.
Yes, exactly. And
we'll leave it at that.
Yeah, and I had also gotten these. A lot of hints had been dropped, things like maybe you could lower the guitar, or
that's
maybe you could stand like this. Yeah, and I realized, you know what? I think she wants me to be Zakk Wylde. I think she's gotten so used to that image of the Hulk. It is a she, yeah.